Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into Dad Bod's Crab Cakes and Sports. Whether you're with us late on Sunday evening or riding into work with us on Monday, you're hanging out where husky, middle aged men share insight on the latest Baltimore sports news. From the bank to the yard and beyond, we're breaking down the Ravens, the Orioles, the Terps, and much, much more. And Baltimore's best sports podcast starts right now. And I'm here, Mike, alongside John. And Jason is on vacay in Ocean City, New Jersey tonight. So he may or may not pop in depending on what's going on his vacation. But John, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well, Mike. You know how this is, right? Your kids get strep or get the flu, and then they graciously grant that to you. So my kids had strep the last 3 or 4 weeks, and now I picked it up last night. So had a teledoc visit and got my trusty Z pack. So hopefully that'll go away, and I won't infect anybody at work or anything this week. But otherwise,
Oh man.
everything's good here. Just getting our afternoon rainstorm sometime between 3 and 5 o'clock, and it was one of the hottest days on record today. So
Well, kids are the gift that just keep on giving. So that's what happens with kids. And I think I'm kind of lucky when it comes to that. And I'm not going to wood. Now I'll be sick this week, but I get all the germs from teaching in high school from the high school kids, and then I also get germs from the elementary school kids that I coach and the middle school kids that I coach. So usually I get a little bit of everything and hopefully dodge a few of those bullets here and there. But John, sorry to hear that you were under the weather. Thanks for posting tonight. Um, I just got back from Hilton Head. I'm back in the homestead in Maryland. Thank you to Southwest Airlines for flying the friendly skies and getting us where we needed to get. Savannah,
is that two
Georgia, man.
shows in a row? Is that 2 shows in a row that we shout out Southwest Airlines?
It really it is because Jason had a shout out, I think, last show. But
Right.
they,
Yeah.
they
Yeah. We
really
had
do
a
a good job on Southwest. Like they are they got us to where we're supposed to be. We were a little bit late getting on the plane in Denver. I don't know if you saw in the news something happened on the ground in Denver at the airport. There was one of the planes that caught fire or something. They had to like American Airlines plane or something that had to get everybody off the plane using the slides or whatever. And I think of course, we're in the airport in Savannah, Georgia. Like, why is this plane like not? And it's like not here yet from Denver, and like because it's our gate and we need to get our plane. And we saw that and we're like, oh man, we should have probably just kept our mouth shut. Um,
It was the
but
landing gear. I think the landing gear broke or something as it was
is that
starting to taxi. Yeah, and then that's why it looked like it was on fire, was because the landing gear was dragging along the concrete of the tarmac as it was going to take off. So better that happened, when you're taking off rather than landing.
Oh yeah, and I felt like a total a-hole though for complaining about what was going on and why we had to wait 10 extra minutes in Savannah. But we did a little tour of Savannah, like a hop on hop off trolley Julie wanted to do, and so we it was like 15 trolley stops. I think we were worried about walking. It was 110 on the heat index. You see old school Savannah in all like the videos and pictures. It's people waving their little fans around, and you think that they're just trying to be cute and all that, but no, that's legitimate. They need to get some airflow down there because it is hot. But got to see some cool sights there and went to River Street, got some River Street sweets and looked around down there. So we had a good time on the last day of vacation, departed and got home safely. And today was the day where, the day when you get home from vacation, you got to do all the things. So we were buying groceries, went to church, bought groceries, clean the house, getting stuff together for camps this week, making sure we're making lunches and getting dinners together. So today was a catch-all day for the Frisky family as we were trying to get some things done.
Well, what's funny, Mike, is that we are getting ready for school, and you still have about another 3 weeks until teachers' meetings and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's either the second to last or last week in August we go back. So we still have a few weeks left. Soccer for me starts August 13th, but that's not school.
Oh, it's not school. Okay, yeah. Here they start. I think the 6th. They just took my kids school shopping last week, and thankfully got everything they needed. Last year, we couldn't find purple folders. Every school in the state needed a purple folder, so they were sold out of purple folders at every single place. I don't no
Like,
idea why, but
why is that? Like in Baltimore, I can understand maybe because of the Ravens, or maybe Minnesota with the Vikings. What do you guys
right.
have down there in Florida? It's
I
purple.
I don't know. Each school just required them to have, they'd have a different colored folders, and the one that no store had was purple. So I don't know, but Lynette took them all shopping a couple weeks ago as soon as the list came out because we didn't want to get stuck having to try to order a dozen folders off Amazon that we don't need just to get that one purple one. Like that was the worst part was we had to go on Amazon and order like the 12 pack with all the colors just to get the one purple one I needed.
I remember being in Target and Walmart school supply shopping, and I think it was a similar where we needed like each color of the rainbow or something for a different subject. And I had all the same brand of folders except for one where it was like a different off brand, and it was in I have my OCD, and it was driving me insane that it was not matching the other folder covers. So I had to go to different stores and finally found one that matched. But I remember that pain. But you know what they do now here in elementary school is they give you a digital list online, like right after school lets out, and they even will shop for it and send it to you if you like click on it in time. They have a certain number where they'll actually do your shopping and send it to you, which is kind of cool.
In Cleveland, there was the school that we were the school attached to the church we were at. They just eventually just charged them a flat fee for supplies and provided everything at the school, and just as part of their tuition and things, they just all the field trips, all of the supplies, everything. You just showed up with a backpack and a lunchbox, and everything else was on your desk supplied by the school, which made a lot of sense.
Well, the Orioles didn't show up to Cleveland until the last game of the series, speaking of Cleveland, because the first three were pretty ugly, John. And finally, I think the O's kind of woke up there in that last game.
Absolutely. They first three games they didn't. Then the last game we wake up. Then we go back to sleep for the first game against the Rockies. And then we score all the runs on Saturday. Then we get a delay today and we win. So at least we took 2 or 3 of the Rockies. That doesn't hurt us as bad as if we were, losing to the Rockies, because that would hurt badly. But we saw what they could. I didn't see the whole game yesterday or today, but just watching the highlights and reading about it, it's like, where is this? But O'Neill's looking good, man. Comes off the DL, homers in 3 straight games. That's what the Orioles signed him for. And that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see if he can keep that up. If indeed we do deal O'Hearn, if we do, deal some of these other bats in the lineup, if he's going to be able to sustain this or not.
Yeah, and with O'Neill, it's always been a matter of health. I mean, he's produced where he was as long as he was healthy, and this was the first time really, since he's come off the DL that he struggled. But it's nice to see him heating up a little bit, and maybe that's a sign of what we'll see here for the last third of the season with him playing a lot in the outfield, especially like you said, if a Mullins or a O'Hearn gets dealt and our outfield gets a little bit shuffled around. It's funny watching. I was in Hilton Head, obviously, for some of the series versus the Rockies, but on Friday night, I looked, it was 4-0. The O's had 4 solo home runs in the first 2 innings, and I'm like, all right, man, taking care of business against the Rockies. I turn around, look, and it's 5-4 Colorado. I'm like, what happened in that game? And it's like that's the kind of season, and these games like mirror the season where it's like we are so Jekyll and Hyde. We'll play really well, and then we'll play really poorly. And I think that's the sign of a very inconsistent team. And they are just bottom of the league in everything, and not rock bottom of the league, but they're bottom third of the league in OPS. They're bottom third of the league in defense. They're bottom third of the league in ERA. Like they aren't really good at anything. And when you have a team that isn't really good at everything, and it shows in these kind of games when you have all these ups and downs, these highs and lows with this inconsistency. And you saw that again in Saturday's game. I saw a stat. It said the Orioles are the only MLB team in modern era to have a dozen or more players getting that bat in a game and have every one of them get a hit and score a run.
Really?
Yes. So
Wow.
12 players in the game got a hit and scored a run. They had 18 runs and 18 hits yesterday.
Holy
So
cow.
it's nuts.
Yeah. And it just, we can't get, but the thing is like Kramer gave us a couple good innings and then this falls apart and then leaves the game after 6, giving up 5. And then Kittredge gives up a solo home run in the 8th inning. And that's the difference in the game. But then you look at Saturday. I mean, that's in Orioles history. That's the largest shutout win in Orioles history was on Saturday's 18-0. So it's just like, where are we gonna, like, at some point, I mean, obviously this season's is too far gone to do anything. But again, Rogers pitches well, and the offense just comes up. So like, where are we? He goes Rogers 7 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts, drops his ERA to $1.49. Like, where are we going to see this consistency so that we can win? Because if your pitchers are giving you even 6 innings with 5 earned runs, even that's not a quality start, but that's not an awful start. That's not a terrible start. But when are we going to be seeing consistency? And I think that's going to be the thing in the offseason that Elias and the front office are going to have to look at is how can we become more consistent? What can our coaching staff do to build on these consistencies and work on, it's hard to say getting the inconsistency out, but how do we become a much more consistent ball club?
Yeah, and for me, it's a lot easier to solve the problem with defense and base running with just some coaching and some drilling and things like that, and just some mental. Um, it's really a game plan thing. It's understanding situations. It's the mental part of the game that I think can be coached. I really do. Pitching wise, I really think it's been injury related, especially with the starters this year. It has been a mess. It's been a mixed pot. It's been a ton of players that we didn't expect to start in this rotation to start the year. And now it's still kind of being melded together. Really impressed by what Trevor Rogers is doing. I think if he can stay anywhere, he's not going to I don't think he's going to continue to perform at this level. If he does, man, he's Cy Young caliber. But, if he can be a top 2 starter in our rotation moving forward, you get a healthy Bradish back maybe into next year, even if it's not this year. You have, Grayson's having his injury struggles, but if you have maybe Tyler Wells comes back, you have this assembly. Maybe you can sign Eflin. You have a semblance of a good starting core of starting pitching. So I think that can be resolved with a little bit of health. And then the at-bats, right? So the last thing is the at-bats. So what do we do to get the at-bats more consistent, right? So it's about your approach at the plate. It's about being patient, finding the right pitch to swing at, knowing when to attack and knowing when to work a count, and working on finding players that can not only hit home runs but get on base, which I was preaching at the beginning of this season, hoping we would get like a Steven Kwan type player. And I know that we've drafted a little bit, hopefully to be a little bit more diverse in what we have as the Orioles roster kind of matriculates from the bottom to the top through the minor league system. But that's going to take a while to get here. So I'll be curious what the approach is in signing free agents in the offseason, if we can find somebody maybe who fits the on-base percentage mold.
Yeah, and I think that the whole analytics thing that Elias uses, kind of the Moneyball, which, that movie is so full of garbage, it's not even funny. But, using that kind of Moneyball approach of, what, we have our leadoff hitter. You look at the way that Jackson now approaches the game, the way that he, as a 21-year-old, how he approaches each at bat, how he approaches each situation at the plate. You can just see the huge difference between this year at the beginning of the year and then now. And then even, I mean, obviously going on last year, it's a completely different ball player. But you just see him working at bats, knowing what to do as the leadoff hitter and beginning to say, you know what, this is my spot. This is where I'm going to go. You guys fill the rest in behind me. I'm going to do my job here. My job is to get on base, steal bases, and, get ahead for the other, for the guys behind me. And I think that's something, that we, Gunner's not a leadoff hitter. Last year we had Gunner hitting leadoff, but he's clearly not a leadoff hitter. And I think now having Jackson there, if we can get everybody healthy, at least then looking towards next year, that gives us a lot of hope.
Yeah, and for me, I'm looking for that number 2, number 3 hitter. I think Gunnar could be considered that guy. He's one of those guys, but another guy who can hit 280 to 300 and hit 30 doubles and just consistently get on base game in and game out, draw a bunch of walks. Like, to me, if you could find a guy like that and plug them into a 2-3 spot in your lineup, I think Adley's suited for the 5 hole. I'm not going to lie, or somewhere down there. I think Kowser's like a 6 hitter. Westy could be like a 4 or 5 hitter. Or even like lower in the lineup if he needs to. I mean, you can platoon some of those guys depending on righty lefty and move them around a little bit. But I really think we need somebody else in that central part of the lineup that gets on base a little bit more often. And I think if the Orioles can focus on that in the offseason, I have an idea to pitch to you real quick, John. And
Okay.
I know we've talked about this previously, but when would a better time to try to extend Adley Rutschman would be than right now, when Adley is coming off the injured list? He's been struggling. He kind of showed a little bit of an uptick before he went on the IL, I think. He started to play a little bit better in the month of July. And we talked about Scott Boras being the agent and that being the hurdle you have to jump over. But, like, remember with Manny Machado, they waited too long. They had an opportunity when he was hurt and kind of they didn't jump on it, and then they had to trade the guy. I don't want to see us go down that same road with Adley. What are your thoughts on trying to jump on this opportunity when he's maybe not as highly priced as he could be, maybe as he comes back strong at the end of this year, early next year, to try to get him signed a little bit more long-term?
I think so. I think now is the perfect time to do that. You may get him a little bit below market value, but knowing Boris, he's gonna push and push and push for the the best deal for his player. But I agree. I think they got to start signing these guys, and the guy to start with is Adley, because Adley's a little bit older. Adley's a little bit older than everybody else in that group because he played 4 years at Oregon State. So I believe he's 27, turning 28, I think, in October. So if you're looking at it from an age perspective and as a catching perspective, how much longer are you going to be able to keep him back there behind the plate just because of the age? And then how many more years you're going to actually get out of him total? And that's going to have to be something the Orioles have to have in the back of their head. I mean, we got Basayo coming up. And we've talked about this at length, that somebody's going to have to move to first base, and Adley's probably the guy who's going to move to first base. But you gotta start extending somebody, and it might as well be the oldest guy on the list right now to start with.
And there's so much recency bias, right, with him not performing well at the end of last year and early this year. And I think he was hurt last year. We all said that something was not right at the end of last year. And then early this year, players slump, and they have a month or two that's bad. Look at Cedric Mullins right now. He's going through one of those periods, but early in the season, he was hot. So Adley would have had some peaks and valleys probably in his season. He was just starting to heat up when he got hurt. I think we know what we have in Adley Rutschman. And I think the other thing you said, John, made a good point, is he might not be a catcher forever for us, right? We have Basayo down there. There's a pipeline of young guys we drafted. You may think to maybe platoon him with Mayo at first base a little bit, or even kind of mix and match first base, DH, catcher in some type of rotation with the three of those guys at some point down the road. But that should mean that he's a little bit less valuable if he's not catching every day when you're trying to talk about contract extensions long term, if we know that the future isn't for him to be a catcher every day.
Right. And the thing is going to be this, though, we got to remember as well, is that, he's got 2 years left of team control until 2027. Is that right? I don't remember off the top of my head. But the other thing to think about is, okay, he goes on the market. What team wouldn't want a switch hitting catcher? Even if, again, I'm going to keep going back to this until somebody proves me otherwise. He's basically a little bit better version of Jason Varitek. He's a little bit stronger of a bat than Jason Varitek, and a little less of a defensive catcher than Varitek was. But that's where he is. And I think there's a lot of teams who would pay a good amount of money in his free agent year, assuming he stays healthy, assuming these things happen, that if the Orioles are going to save the money, going to save the player, they got to get him now. They gotta lock him up right now while, like you said, while he's hurt, while he's not performing at the peak ability. Because if he's at a peak ability, I don't think the Orioles are going to have the cash to spend on a player like that, along with Henderson and Westberg and Kowser and Holiday and everybody else that we're going to have to end up going after.
And he's a free agent in 2028. So, I mean, we got a couple years of team control. The other thought you have with Adley is he's kind of a product of he was supposed to be a superstar. I mean, I think if he was drafted a different place and the expectations were a little bit different, fans might not be quite as hard on Adley. I think he's still a really good baseball player. It's just a matter of understanding that it's almost like the Matt Wieters situation. There's all that hype around Wieters, Mauer with power, and he wasn't exactly that, but he was still a really good major league catcher. And I think Adley's the same thing. He's a really good major league catcher that for the next 10 years can help. You can build a winning ball club around that guy. He might not be your number 4 hitter and a perennial MVP candidate, but he's still a really good baseball player at worst.
Well, and nothing against, and don't saying he's like Jason Varitek is not a knock. I mean, Jason Varitek was the cornerstone of those Boston Red Sox teams in the mid 2000s. It's not a knock whatsoever. But Rutschman is not Joe Mauer. He's not I think that's who the Orioles thought they were getting when they drafted him, as a switch hitting Joe Mauer, who's going to hit well over 300 every year, doesn't have a ton of power, but is going to get on base and is going to do those things for you. There's only one Joe Mauer. And unfortunately, Rutschman is not turning into that type of player. And again, I'm going to say it again and again and again. He's basically Jason Varitek with a little bit better bat. Until he proves otherwise, you know what? He might prove me wrong. But as of right now, that's what I'm seeing for him his entire career.
All right, let's wrap up this O's conversation for now with a little bit of talk about what's going to happen here over the next few days. And I want to zoom out a little bit to the trade deadline at the Major League Baseball level. Okay. So looking at the upcoming series, we have 4 games versus Toronto. It's a night game, doubleheader, and then I think an afternoon game to finish up. It's a lot of games in a short amount of time versus a very good Toronto team that now has a 5-6 game lead in the AL East.
Yes, I believe so. It is,
and they are looking to add at the trade deadline, and they could get better over the course of the next 4 days. You don't know how that's going to go down. And then you follow that up. I believe they're in Chicago, John. Is that correct?
Yes.
For the next 3.
Yeah, they have 3 afternoon games, Thursday, Friday, or no, excuse me, off Thursday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they have 2:20 games every day. Then they play 2 6:45 at the Phillies. Then they play a 12:15 at the Phillies. So they're home.
I think I might try to get to one of those Phillies games. That afternoon game looks appealing to me. I'm trying to convince my wife to let me take the kids down there, maybe up there, I should say, to Philadelphia, maybe to catch that one.
Yeah, and then Josh can show the brotherly love and bring your daughter some concessions.
So the question then for you, John, looking at the upcoming matchups, let's just go through Sunday. So we have 4 against Toronto and 3 against the Chicago Cubs in Wrigley. What do you think their records are going to be over the next 7? Maybe break down what your thoughts are on the upcoming series.
I think they'll go 3-4. I don't see them taking more than maybe 1 against the Blue Jays. They may get one of the 2 double headers there. I don't see anything. And then I think they could take 2 of 3 from the Cubs. So I'm gonna say 3-4. They'll lose 3 against the Blue Jays, and they'll win 2 of 3 against the Cubs. I just think Rogers going to pitch on a full rest, and I think that's gonna be good for us next weekend against the Cubs.
So the Blue Jays have a pretty good rotation now. Chris Bassett's having a pretty good year. Scherzer, they have Jose Barrios. I mean, they have some good pitchers in Toronto. I didn't take a look yet at the probables, but I assume we'll hit a few of those guys. And we're getting Adley back on Monday. It's so saith social media. So getting Adley back and Keegan Aiken back potentially for the Toronto series should help. I would say I'm going to go for a split versus Toronto, having the home field advantage. I think if we were in Toronto, I say we get 1 of 4. I say we go 2-2 against Toronto. I think one thing that we do have is a little bit of depth, and in those doubleheader type games, I think that will make a difference. And that we've had to play so many different players, I think that could help. And then if you look at Chicago, their starting pitching has been really good. They're looking to upgrade their starting rotation. They might be a different team by the time we see them this weekend as well. I think it's hard to win on the road in Wrigley. Those day games are a little bit different than we're used to. I say we get 1 of 3 there. So I'm saying 3 and 4. So I'm saying I think the same thing you said, but I'm thinking a little bit different split wise.
Are we gonna? The thing I was looking at is looking at the schedule. Are we gonna hang on to the 3 catchers until Wednesday?
So
I don't
that's
know what
up in
other
the
move we
air.
make.
They haven't announced the move. So the question is, do you keep Stallings, Jackson, and Adley Rutschman? They get the extra guy, like you said, on Tuesday. So it is a possibility maybe that they try to hold on to those guys. But at least I would think by Wednesday, one of those guys is going to get options. And to me, we talked about this last episode. It's got to be Stallings, right?
Right. Jackson had a good game. I think it was Saturday. I think he was 2 for 3 with a home run and a double and 4 RBIs. I mean, everybody had an RBI. Everybody had an RBI Saturday, but no,
Well,
he's looking good.
Did you see his slow pitch softball at bat home run where he did a little Happy Gilmore shuffle into the old pitch?
Right. Yep. That was. I saw that on about 6 different things. Oh, by the way, did you get a chance to watch the movie?
I did. I downloaded it on Netflix for the flight home, and was able to watch the majority of it on the ride home. What did you think?
I just the first one was so good, and I think my expectations were so high, and I just think they were too high. I mean, it was kind of cool having all the like cameos in there, like Travis Kelce getting eaten by the bear,
Yeah.
and all the professional golfers and things in it. It was pretty cool, but I don't know. I think it just fell flat.
A lot of his family, it looked like, was in the cast too, and I thought that was kind of cool. The other part that I enjoyed was Scotty Scheffler and his he was just a good sport about being arrested and all that kind of stuff. Not to give too much away, but I thought, for him to be so down to earth, to be able to handle all that and just kind of take it in stride. I already like him as a golfer, and I appreciate him even more watching the movie.
Yeah, I still think the first one was better. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat it because it's that the initial expectations were so high, like you said, of the sequel. Like, it's almost like there's only a couple sequels that have ever lived up to that. Like, the Top Gun Maverick movie was excellent. Like, I thought it was as good as the original. I don't know what your feelings are. Yeah, Major League 2 was as good as the original. But beyond that, like, there aren't a lot of movies to me that the second movie lived up to the billing of the first.
I think like for our kids, like the Toy Story movies are all good. All of them. All 4 of them. But the Mighty Ducks movies were pretty good. The second and the third one I thought were actually better than the first one. And then Top Gun Maverick was just a phenomenal. But yeah, I just think he could have. There's a lot more he could have done. Like I said, I liked all the cameos. I liked, the other athletes and things in there, and I like the kind of pot shots at the other one, at the original and things. But it's just, I guess our hopes and expectations were so high that I think they may have been out of whack there.
Well, let's zoom out a little bit on Major League Baseball because the trade deadline is almost upon us. Today is July 27th. The trade deadline is July 31st. So this week I would expect to see quite a bit of action across Major League Baseball as the haves and have-nots start to separate and teams start to prepare for the final stretch run. And try to make that move that will set them apart come postseason. And, unfortunately, it looks like the Orioles are on the seller's end of this stick. But my first question, I'm going to run through a bunch of questions, John. We're just going to rapid fire about the MLB trade deadline. We'll go back and forth a little bit. But my first question, I'm going to go through a bunch of teams. I want you to tell me whether or not you think they should be buyers or sellers at the deadline. So these are kind of teams that are in the middle, muddled between 4 and 7 games out of the last wild card spot for the most part. Okay. So the first one is Cleveland. What do you think? Buy or sell?
I think that they're going to be sellers. I think that they have pieces to sell to bring back pretty high prospects, if not current major leaguers.
See, for me, for Cleveland, I would say Kansas City's not playing particularly well. Detroit has come back down to earth. They're in a division where I think they can make up some ground while the AL East beats up on each other. They have a good, solid starting rotation. You have Steven Kwan, you have Ramirez, you have Santana, you have a good core of players. I would say, why the heck not? Just maybe you sell a piece and you buy a couple pieces, but I wouldn't mind seeing that team, watching them come play in last week. I think they have a good nucleus for a team. I wouldn't mind seeing them buy at the deadline.
I just think they're too far back. I mean, they're going to have to hope for just an absolute collapse of the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Mariners, and the Rangers. I just think they're going to have to. I mean, they're going to have to go on they're going to have to win 15 of 20 and hope that the Yankees, Red Sox, Mariners, and Rangers all, just go in a slump. I don't know. I just think they're just too far back right now.
Currently, they're only 3.5 games back of the last wild card spot. Texas and Seattle are currently tied at 56 and 50 for the last wild card spot. Cleveland's 52 and 53. Yeah, is it improbable? Yeah, John, you're probably right. But if they maybe were buyers at the deadline, did something special, there's a chance they could go on a run. All right, let's go to the next team. Next team I have here is Tampa. They are currently, I believe, 500 right now.
Yes, 53 and 53. I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna buy. They've already shown us they're gonna buy in trading for just slipped my mind. The pitcher. We got the 37th overall.
Brian Baker.
Brian Baker. Thank you. Just slipped my mind. I think they're gonna be buyers. Should they be? Yeah, they're kind of in the same boat as Cleveland, but I think they're gonna be buyers.
It's hard for baseball teams to play in boats. I'm not sure how that works, but anyway, I think that they're
playing this week at a NASCAR track. So, I think we might be able to do it at an aircraft carrier or something someday.
I think you're right, John. I think they should be sellers, but they have shown their hand a bit. It wasn't a huge move. They only really traded a draft pick, so I don't know that they couldn't necessarily pivot. They've shown a propensity to kind of do both at the trade deadline, so that wouldn't surprise me either if they sold off a couple guys, but also brought in a couple guys who are close to major league ready. Maybe like what the Orioles are doing. I think that could be what Tampa does.
Sorry. Here's the thing with the Rays right now is they've lost 4 in a row. I think they've lost something, and they're like
3 and 7 in their last 10.
4. Okay, yeah, 3 and 7. I was thinking 4 and 6 in the last 10. So they're a little bit on the slumping side right now. But you don't know. You bring in somebody, but they're not going to spend the money. That's the problem with the Rays is they're just not going to spend the money on it. But there's going to be a new ownership group, so maybe those things will change down there too.
Well, they're always looking to flip guys that are kind of becoming established for younger guys that haven't been established yet. And that, like you said, John, they're not looking to pay anybody. So they're looking at a Brandon Lowe maybe or a one of those guys, Taj Bradley maybe as a pitcher that they might have to pay here down the road, and they're trying to flip them before they have to pay them.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, next team is Kansas City Royals. They are also in the AL Central, much like the Guardians, and they are 52 and 54. They're a half game back of Cleveland.
I think they're going to kind of be in the same boat as the Indians. I think they're going to have to sell. Or they may, or for them more so, just kind of sit and wait and see kind of what happens who comes calling on Thursday and Friday, because they could go either way. But I think if anything, they're going to sell. They're not. Again, I just think that it's just too. There's too many teams that are, 3-4 games doesn't seem like a lot, but when you see how powerful and how well these teams are playing, it takes a lot of games to make up 3 games.
Yeah, I think they'll be light sellers. You might see Seth Lugo go or something like that. Bubic just went on the IL, which is one of their better pitchers. Um, they have a good core with this Pasquatch, and they have Bobby Witt Jr. there. I think there would be light sellers maybe at this point in the season, especially with losing one of their best pitchers right now in the stretch.
Absolutely.
San Francisco Giants. Right now, if you look at the standings, the Giants are in the NL West, and they are sitting at 54 and 51, 2.5 games back of the last wild card spot. But remember, they're in the same division with the Padres and the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, who aren't bad.
Yeah, I think they're going to be buyers. I think they're going to try to close the gap on the wild card. They're only 2.5 back, so that means if they go 3-0 and somebody hits a little skid, they're in the wild card. So I seriously think that they're gonna be buyers, or they. And again, it's always hard. It's always hard to predict these things because sometimes they'll just stay. They're not buyers or sellers. They're happy with what they have, and it comes down to who stays healthy for the last 2 months of the season, or who hits a hot streak, or who actually is coming off the DL, and that's going to kind of And for I think the Giants, I don't know. I don't know their roster or anything like that well off the top of my head, but they may just stay and just kind of hope that everything works out.
Well, I'll be curious to see what Buster Posey does. They're 2-8 in their last 10, so they really hit a rough patch right now as they head into the trade deadline. You could see them staying pat-ish, or maybe just lightly buying and trying to see if they could sneak their way into a wild card. I think they have to know they're the third best team in that division if you look on paper. So I don't know. They're definitely not an all-in team to me, like one of those teams that's just going to go all in for this season.
But then here's their problem. Here's their problem, Mike. Is the Reds are on a hot streak. They're both the Reds and the Brewers are 7-3 in their last 10. The Reds have won 4 in a row. So, if the Reds are going to be buyers, which I don't know if that was on your list of questions to ask, but if the Reds are buyers,
yes, it was.
Okay, well then I'm going to say the Reds will be buyers because I'm just looking at their schedule and how their work they're playing right now. They're going to be buyers, and I think they're just going to keep improving. I mean, De La Cruz is one of the best players in baseball, So I think they're going to be buyers there, and then that's going to be what do the Giants do? Do the Giants then buy because the Reds are buying, and do they try to get into the wild card, or do they just hold pat and hope that something happens and they can somehow squeak back into the playoffs?
Well, if you look at the National League, it's just a much better league overall right now. So the Cubs and Brewers are tied at 62 wins in the NL Central. You have the Phillies with 60 wins leading the NL East, and then you have the Padres with 57. The Reds are a game out of the wild card right now. I'm sorry, I mixed that up. You have the Cubs and Brewers. Mets. The Mets are leading the NL East, and the Dodgers are leading the West. But that's your wild card situation. You got the Cubs and Brewers tied. You got the Phillies at the first wild card, and you got the Padres in the second wild card. So it's just a wild west out there in National League anyway. It's going to be hard with all those really good teams to make the playoffs. But I think the Reds, John, are desperate. Like they haven't been very prominent in the playoffs in a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised to see ownership and the general manager make a move. Like I wouldn't mind seeing I wouldn't mind making a deal with the Reds. I think they're a team that might be a little desperate. Like if the Orioles want to make a deal with the Reds, I think that might be a great fit for some of our guys.
Well, and then the Reds got 3 this week against they have 3 against the Dodgers and then the Braves. So if they could potentially, pick up a couple spots here, if they could stay hot, take 3 out of 4 against the Dodgers, then they got the Braves, the Cubs, and the Pirates, and then the Phillies and the Brewers. So here in the next month, if the Reds play their cards right, they could be not only in the wild card contention, they could be in the NL Central contention as well.
Well,
So they're
they have to play their cards because they're in their division, right? The Cards.
yeah, but they don't play the Cards. They don't play the Cardinals until the end of August.
Oh
So,
man.
but no, they play the Cubs, the Pirates, the Phillies, the Brewers, all back to back to back. So that's telling me as a general manager, I'm going in there and I'm thinking, man, if I can take, if I can get a over 500 record against this relatively difficult stretch, we're in the playoffs. So I think they're going to be buyers, 100%.
Okay, how about Boston?
Boston, the Red Sox. I
They
think
they are sitting at 57 and 50 right now, John. They are a half game up in the AL wild card right now on the Mariners and the Rangers, who both sit at 56 and 50. So they are in a playoff spot right now if the season were to end today.
I think they're going to bring in, like we always say, what do they bring in? They bring in back end bullpen help and maybe a third, fourth, fifth starter. I don't know what they would bring in offensively or defensively, but those kind of teams always seem to bring in a back end reliever and a back of the rotation guy who can, when you're going to pitchers on 3 days rest, can also do your long stuff out of the bullpen. So I think they'd be a buyer for some sort of a late starter and then a back end of a bullpen, a sixth, seventh, eighth inning guy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're going to be buyers. I think they are going to hold on to Duran. They're talking about whether or not if they would sell Duran right now. I don't think they're going to sell him. They already sold. If you're thinking about what they did earlier with Devers this year. So if anything, I think they're going to buy. I saw an article in ESPN. Yandy Diaz might be a great fit for them. From Tampa, he's making $10 million this year. He's attractive $12 million option next year. He would fill a spot for them at first base. That is something that they've been struggling really to fill that void all year long. So that could be something in addition, maybe to a starter, like a back end starter that they add there.
Yeah, that would make sense.
All right, so then I got 2 more for you. The Cardinals in the NL Central, and if you look at the standings for the Cardinals right now, they're muddled in that NL behind all those really good teams, but they are sitting 54 and 53. They're a game over 500. They are 3.5 games back of the wild card, but again, losers of 7 of their last 10.
Yeah, I think they're going to be sellers, or just again holders. I don't think. Again, like what I just said a few minutes back, how many? It only looks like 3.5, but you have to actually win 4 and hope that all the other teams in front of you lose 4 in a row. So you're actually talking about probably a 10 to 15 game swing that has to go in your favor to do that. And if I'm the Cardinals, I just, if all these other guys are making moves too, then they're going to be like, okay, what do we do? Do we just hold and hope for next year, or what is the best route of doing this? And I think that plays, I don't know. What's your opinion on this? I've always thought that, there's some teams and a lot of GMs will go and say, okay, we're going to look and see who makes moves and then decide if we're going to make a move. Because if we feel like we have a good team and, the team in front of us doesn't do anything, well, I'm not going to go trying to get a 3-month rental. But if the team in front of me is making moves, then I sure as hell better go make some moves to try to keep up with them.
Yeah, it's kind of hard in that situation. You feel like you have to keep up with the Joneses. If you, let's say you're in the AL East and you're the Orioles and the Yankees and the Red Sox both make a big move and you're in contention, it's like, what do? You kind of stick to the plan, I would think, is probably the best option. The issue is a lot of times you're forced into a knee type knee-jerk type reaction move, and sometimes that could end up hurting you in the long run because it's not as well thought out as it would have been if you had more than 2 days to plan it. But it can work out too. It can be the impetus for something good. So it's kind of a crapshoot when it comes down to stuff like that. But it depends on how seriously in contention you are too. This wild card has really mucked things up a little bit, and everybody's in contention a bit longer. I think we're talking about some of these teams in the middle where they really don't have a shot to win the World Series. A lot of these teams, they just are trying to make the playoffs and give their franchise and their fans some hope. So if you're doing that, then I would not make a move. If you're one of that third or fourth team in the division, to me, that makes not a ton of sense.
Right.
The last team I have on here is the Texas Rangers. If you look at the standings, Texas has been, I believe, playing a lot better of late. They've won 9 of their last 10 with a 6-game winning streak. They're 56-60. We know they have talent. They won the World Series a couple years ago. What do you think Texas is going to do sitting in that tied for that last wild card spot with Seattle, who's also in their division? And Houston leads that division at 60-46.
Right, and Houston's lost their last 4, so that division is really up for grabs. But I think the Rangers are going to be buyers. I think they're going to have to do something to shore their roster up. To, again, similar to what I said about the Red Sox. You always want to get that 4th or 5th starter who can also then during the playoffs move into the maybe a long relief role in the bullpen, and you want to make sure that you're sure on that 6th, 7th, and 8th inning guy to get to your stopper in the end. So I think they're going to be buying, and really I think some of it's going to depend on is what do the Mariners do. I mean, you saw the Mariners already brought in Josh Naylor from the Diamondbacks, so. They're going to I think they're going to have to make a move to kind of counter that and try to help themselves improve so that they can keep up with the Mariners. And then hopefully, they're not, that AL West is not necessarily a done deal on who's going to win it either. So, they got a shot there as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I think Texas is a buyer. The more teams that buy, I think it helps the Orioles, right? Because if you're looking at some of these fringe players that we're trying to get rid of, there's more of a market to bid for these guys. Not only will it give us more of an opportunity to maybe have a deal with one of these teams now that there are more teams involved, like the Reds, the Rangers, some of these teams you're talking about, John, but also maybe it creates a bidding war on a couple of your guys, maybe more of your more valuable guys that are real assets. Maybe a Cedric Mullins now, if there weren't as many teams in contention, you may or may not be able to move that guy. But now with so many teams trying to compete with one another and still in it, you have a chance to move a guy like that in the current climate of the wild card race.
Well, and like I say, you always need back end relievers and then like corner infielders. What do the Orioles have a bunch of? They got a corner infielder in O'Hearn, and then they got Kittredge, and they already got rid of Soto, but they got Dominguez in the back of and Kittredge in the back of their bullpen. So, that's. They're sitting in a good position here for a desperate team who needs a left-handed power hitter who's a iffy fielder at best. But he'll give you what you need. And I think they also have the back-end bullpen. And if somebody needs a starter, I don't know if somebody's coming calling for like for a Dean Kramer or something like that too.
Charlie Morton. I mean, he's pitched well.
Yeah.
Maybe Sagano. I don't know. We'll see. I don't
think Sagano has enough tape. I don't think they have enough on Sagano yet to really figure him out.
I mean, you might not get much for him, but I think teams are always looking to acquire depth for their starting rotation. Not only, like you said, I think you've mentioned this too, John, not only for the playoffs, but for the playoff run to keep those guys that are their starters that are going to be their main playoff horses healthy and ready to go for the playoffs. So I always think those starters could go. You just never know. And so I have 2 more quick questions, John. I want to move along here about the MLB trade deadline. Number 2 here, the perfect player team fit. Do you see a player out there on the market, trade market somewhere, where you think this guy would be perfect traded to this team? So just looking at what's available, do you have somebody you think is a perfect match?
Well, I'm sorry to say this, but I think O'Hearn to the Red Sox makes a lot of sense. I think O'Hearn, they need a first baseman, they need a left-handed bat there in that lineup. And I think O'Hearn to the Red Sox would fill that need at first base, as well as that short right field corner would definitely be a big one. I think a big help, and you could see O'Hearn's power numbers going up because of that. So I'll say Ryan O'Hearn by Friday will be wearing a Boston Red Sox uniform.
My guy would be Marcell Ozuna to the Padres. I think they are in need of an outfielder. Atlanta and San Diego, I believe, have swung some deals before. He has fallen out of favor with Snicker, the manager there in Atlanta, I feel like a little bit. Um, I think it's not a bad move for San Diego to kind of upgrade at the outfield position. They're looking to catch the Dodgers. And again, obviously, they've had their playoff series with the Dodgers. Anything they can do to maybe bump that series in their favor by pushing the envelope, I think they would do it. Um, so, I think it's a possibility there. It's not necessarily a done deal that they will trade Ozuna, but if they do, I think the Padres would be a perfect fit for him. So, last question there, John, for you is what is your most memorable Baltimore Orioles trade deadline deal? Most memorable Baltimore Orioles trade deadline deal.
Oh man.
While you think,
Like,
I'll give you mine. How about that? I'll give you a
okay,
second to think
yeah.
about it. Andrew Miller. Andrew Miller for me. I knew he was a good pitcher when I saw him come to Baltimore in that deadline. Was 2014, I believe, in the trade deadline. He was
I believe so.
ridiculous. He was just lights out in that bullpen and made such a difference for that AL East winning Oriole team. And so for me, that Andrew Miller deal was just outstanding and stands out in my mind beyond most of the other ones at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, the one that gets me and just eats me all the time is the Manny Machado. Is when we dealt Machado for Yusniel Diaz, Dean Kramer, Zach Pop, Bravich Valera, and Rylan Bannon. One guy made it to the big leagues in Kramer, and we gave up Man. Well, but think about it. Manny was on the Dodgers for what, 3 months? And then he
Yeah.
was on
Yeah.
so the Dodgers gave up all this
That was
for
2018. Yeah.
2018, and that's kind of the big one that I remember, and that I'm like, I know did they do everything they could to keep Manny? Probably not, but was he going to stay in Baltimore? Absolutely not.
No.
You know, so
They just didn't find the right guys in that deal. That's the issue. But I understand why they dealt him.
yeah, right. Better to get something than nothing.
Some honorable mentions. You might remember the Koji to the Rangers for Chris Davis and Tommy Hunter in 2011. That was a pretty good July deadline deal. That was July 30th, 2011. Um, Jorge Lopez in 2022 when they traded him as the closer from the all-star closer for us for the Orioles for Yanier Cano and Cade Povich and some prospects. So a couple others that worked out well for the Orioles. There were also quite a few more recently that did not. But I'm excited for July 31st trade deadline. I always am excited. I go to MLB trade rumors and hit refresh like 72 times a day this time of year because I'm always excited to get updated on what the most recent rumors and trades that going on are.
How about this one, Mike? And this is before my time. The uh, July 29th, 1988. The Orioles receive outfielder Brady Anderson and right-handed pitcher Kurt Schilling for right-handed pitcher Mike Boddicker. That's before I
Not
was even
bad.
born. My mom, I think my mom was pregnant with me at that point in time. But yeah, I saw that one pop up in the 10 biggest trades, and Brady Anderson patrolled center field here for so long. We had those good teams in the mid '90s. You know,
And we gave up on Kurt Schilling a little early, but he had an outstanding major league career as well.
absolutely.
All right, John, can you tell everybody where they can find our podcast?
Yeah, we are on Apple and Spotify, Red Circle, wherever you get your podcast, iHeartRadio. You can follow us on Facebook. You can see us at Dad Bod's Crab Cakes and Sports on Facebook and Instagram. You can also find us on Twitter. Or on X, excuse me. We're trying to increase our followership on there. We're at crabcake_sports on Twitter. You can find us there. Email us dadbodscrabcakesandsports@gmail.com. And we might just shout you out on the show, give us some ideas of things to talk about, games to play, things like that. So that's all the places that you can contact us, and we'd love to hear from you guys and see what interesting things you liked, what you didn't like, what we can improve on. It's always good, and likes and follows help move us up the charts of sports and dad bods and whatever other categories there are on the Apple and Spotify chart lists.
Yes, sir. Thank you, John. Looking into our next segment as we move into Ravens talk a little bit. We'll talk about training camp here in a second, but I want to do a little bit of a game with you here, John, for a minute. And this is our ballpark figures. And you don't have a partner today to help you out, John. So I will do my best to kind of give you a little bit of a boost or assist. Remember, with ballpark figures, I'm asking you for the top 10 list of a certain category, and you're trying to come up with those guys as best as possible.
Last time it was the bottom 10.
Well, I can do what I want. That's the whole thing about having our own podcast. So
that's right.
I've decided that I'm going to be more friendly with this one because you're all by yourself today. But you are representing the grade 8 there, our grade 8 in Baltimore, so I appreciate the jersey. All right. Category today is top 10 all-time leaders in receiving yards for the Baltimore Ravens. Top 10 all-time receiving yardage leaders for the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, let's start with Steve Smith Sr.
Strike one.
Oh.
He is 11. Okay. He is number 11.
Oh, my goodness.
2,534. This is according to Pro Football Reference. 2,534. He had 195 catches for 2,534 yards. Remember, we're going for receiving yards all time.
Receiving yards. Okay, is Mark Andrews on this list?
He is number 2 all time. He has been a Raven since 2018. He has amassed 436 receptions for 5,530 yards.
Okay, so there's one has above him. I'm trying to think of who
number
is
one
here?
All time isn't someone that we drafted.
Is it Anquan Boldin?
No, but he is on the list. He's number 9.
Okay.
He was here from only 2010 to 2012, but still makes the Ravens top 10
That's
list,
what I was. Well, that's the problem, Mike, is all these receivers were here, but they were here for like a year or two.
Yeah.
So I'm going through my list. I'm like, Patrick Johnson, he was here a long time, but I don't know if he caught the ball that much.
No, or it's Travis not an Taylor. Illustrious. It's not an illustrious history with Ravens.
Is Travis Taylor? Is Travis Taylor on?
Hold on. Let me go to Anquan Boldin here. He had 186 receptions for 2,645 yards in his 3 seasons. In Baltimore, he was number 9. Travis Taylor is your next guess. Yes, he was number 8 all time. He had, from 2000 to 2004, he was here. He was drafted, obviously, in the first round by the Ravens. And he had 204 receptions for 2,758 yards.
Okay, so it's got to be greater than 2,200.
I'll give you a couple hints. Yeah, I'll give you a couple hints.
Hollywood.
You have another tight end on the list. You have a running back on the list, and a couple more receivers.
Another tight end. Oh, what's his name? Let's see. So Steve Smith is not on the list, but how long was
he Hollywood? He's just number 11. We're looking for a top 10.
No, he's not right. So Hollywood would not be. I don't think Patrick Johnson on this list? He
Dude,
was on the team.
no. Yeah, come
Let's
on, man.
see.
What think one is a receiver we drafted. You got to think a little bit older, not crazy older, but like think Joe Flacco era.
Oh, Torrey Smith.
Torrey Smith is number 4 with 213 receptions, and he had 3,591 receiving yards.
Is Todd Heap on this list?
Todd Heap is the other tight end. He is
Okay.
number 3. He had 467 receptions. That's pretty good. For 5,492 yards. So 2 of our top 3 are tight ends on our all-time
Tells you
receiving list.
something. Ray
Yes.
Rice. Is Ray Rice on this list?
Yes, Ray Rice is number 6.
Okay.
He has 369 receptions and for 3,034 yards. So he is our 6th best receiver all time in Ravens history.
Yeah, remember when he got like 40 yards on a 4th and 28 or something against the Chargers? It was against the Chargers, I think.
4th and 29, baby.
Yeah.
He got 29.001 yards on that play.
Okay, so we're missing number 1.
So you're missing 1, 5, 7, and 10. Number 1 is a Michigan State product. He played in Tennessee.
Oh, Mason.
Derek Mason, 471 receptions for 5,777 yards.
Okay. I'm trying to think like who else is like a Brandon Stokely, but I don't think a Brandon Stokely was here long enough for that. Unless I'm like going through the list of like kind of B-list guys who were here for an extended period of time.
All right, number 5 was also drafted by the Ravens. He's a wide receiver. And number 10, 7 and 10 were at more toward the origin in the 90s of the Ravens. But Quadre Ismail, number 7 all time.
Okay.
From 1999 to 2001, he had 191 receptions for 2,819 yards. So you're missing 5 and 10.
And Jermaine Lewis.
5 I used in Blast from the Past recently.
Huh.
He was not here later. He was here from the Sooners.
The Sooners. Oh, Oh, I know. Oh, shoot. So 5, we're missing 5 and 10, right?
Yep. And 10 was here when the Ravens came from Cleveland.
Okay.
He's also named after a famous singer.
Michael Jackson.
Okay, so Michael Jackson. He was here from 1996.
Oh, Mark Clayton. Mark Clayton is the other guy.
So Michael Jackson, 96 to 98, 183 receptions for 2,596 yards. And yes, Mark Clayton was number 5. He was here from 05 to 09, across from Derek Mason for most of that time, with 234 receptions for 3,116 yards.
So where's like what's like the 11? 11 is
so Steve Smith is 11. 12 is Marquise Hollywood Brown.
Okay.
Then you have Derek Alexander, who played across from Michael Jackson in 96. Dennis Pitta, another tight end. Jermaine Lewis. Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers are 16 and 17 on the list already.
Really? Wow.
Already. Yeah.
But they don't need to get they one more 1,000-yard season from Zay, and he's in the top 10. Right.
Then you have Mike Wallace, Shannon Sharp, and Kamar Aiken is our 20th best wide receiver ever.
Oh my gosh! So how many yards?
1,539 yards.
So how many yards do we? So potentially Zay and Bateman could both be in the top 10 this season.
They could get
pretty probable.
I mean, I don't know about this year, but there's a good chance if we retain those guys that they are top 10 all time Ravens receivers within the next 2 years.
Oh, I'm sure. Wow. Wow. That's saying something about the way your franchise plays football, you know?
Well, the Ravens had training camp on Saturday. They had practice, and it was their last. They didn't have pads on, but on Monday they should have some pads ready to fly. Standouts from Saturday's practice, Tez Walker apparently is flying all over the field, trying to make a name for himself in that receiving room, which is really good to hear. Apparently, he made a play on a comeback ball in front of Jair Alexander. He made a couple sliding catches. He's all over the field. He's standing out. If there's somebody gets hurt, if let's say Bateman or Flowers goes down, or Hopkins doesn't provide what you think he's going to. I think he has established himself basically as a number 4 right now in front of Tylan Wallace and Westney. But he is looking good in camp right now, John.
Oh, absolutely. I'm reading this and listening to these things, and they're like, he's putting in the time and the effort and the work. And here's the other thing about Tez. I have some friends of mine had Thanksgiving dinner with him this past year. Just said what a great guy he is. He's a good human being too. But he's putting in the work to get to that third wide receiver spot. If Hopkins can't be the Hopkins that we need him to be, but that's kind of been the thing with the Ravens is we just get that fourth or fifth wide receiver in here who can surprise you. And when he's on their their nickel back or their fourth or fifth cornerback or their safety, then he creates a matchup problem. Because when they're going to have to double that, the other guys, Zay and Bateman and send safety help up into the box to stop Derrick Henry, and then you put Hill and Mitchell out there, who's left uncovered? Tez. So I can see Tez having just a monster season because he gets lost amongst the other players on the team.
Well, it's exciting to see younger players step up, especially receiving wise, because the Ravens were so snake bitten with receivers for so many years. So if this guy can pan out, that would be 3 receivers in the past 4 or 5 years that have panned out for them. I think that maybe starts to rewrite the path, hopefully, for the Ravens when it comes to drafting wide receivers. So something hopefully organizationally has changed to help that. And the other thing I'm curious to see, and it sounds like we talked about the safeties that are out there on the market, maybe with Ardarius Washington going down, maybe trying to find somebody as a veteran to kind of plug in case somebody gets hurt, like Starks or Hamilton. But Sanusi Kane and Bo Braid seem to be stepping up in this kind of competition where they're trying to find that third safety spot and find room on the field. And both of them made some plays in camp on Saturday.
Yeah, they tipped. Let's see, Kane tipped a pass from Cooper Rush that then was picked off by Jalen Armour-Davis, and then Braid on a 7-on-7 drill was knocking the ball out of Charlie Collaire's hands. And so it's just, those are good problems to have of saying, okay, what do we do? Where can you play me? Like that's the good problems to have is when we have 4 safeties, all deserving time on the field. And then you got to figure out, okay, what are you going to do with them? And then if you have an injury come up or something happens, and you end up having to trade one of them, well, then that ends up being, an even better thing down the road. And, and I see all of these reports coming out of camp everywhere on the entire field. These guys are just on top of their games that, they've put the work in the offseason. Odafe Owe, adding 20 some odd pounds to his frame to get better in his power rush. And they said he's still quicker than he was last year, even with 20 pounds on his frame, and now, they're saying that, or with the second year with this defense, giving him more tools for the toolbox is scary. And like Hamilton was saying yesterday or the day before in an interview, he goes, we can't compare to Ray Lewis and the 2000 team, but he goes, this is a damn good defense, and the other teams better be ready. But giving Orr more tools to play with, that's like Tim the Toolman Taylor putting up a fence in his backyard. You give him a screwdriver and a nail gun, he's going to be done a lot faster than if you just give him a hammer.
More power. I think I'm going to go on record to say that they are not going to sign a veteran safety unless there's an injury. I think they like the way these two young guys are playing, and I think they're excited. It's not like they're rookies. You know what I mean? So, like, they're guys who have been in camp before, and I think they're going to let these guys try to duke it out and find the way onto the field. The other interesting thing at camp, obviously, we're watching the kicking battle between Tyler Loop and John Hoyland. Loop has yet to miss a kick in training camp and hit a 68-yarder on the side field the other day. He's looking really good, and Hoyland's giving him some competition. I think he's missed 2 kicks maybe all of camp. So good problems again. Hopefully Loop does what he's supposed to do, and we can stash Hoyland on the practice squad. I just want to see that consistency day in, day out before I make any judgments. But right now it's looking good.
Yeah, I'm beginning to get more confident in this kicking game. That I think I think I said that when camp started that was going to be one of our top priorities, is making sure that our special teams are up to par and that our kicking game is on point. And I think just in seeing Loop nail that's granted not in a game or anything, but still 68 yards out, and he gave it with room to spare. He's got the advertisements for him that came in when we drafted him are pretty spot on. He's got a leg, he's got the accuracy, he's going to be a valuable member of this team. But then you look at the other guys that we brought in. The rapport between Jackson and Hopkins, they're saying is just growing every day. And Jair Alexander, they have nothing but good things to say about him. And he said, you saw that the other day, right? Where he said, I just love being here. This is like a great place to play and a great, everything. So it's just, again, like we talk about this all the time. If it's not a Super Bowl this year, then something happened, or it's just a huge disappointment, either or.
Well, there's several reports from training camp. I'm looking at one from Bo Smolka that the Ravens are still having issues with pre-snap penalties, which was a big issue for them last year. And if you're really trying to find ways that the Ravens season could get derailed, it's really by beating themselves. And that's what pre-snap penalties are all about. And it's not just the offensive linemen with the false starts and those types of things. Remember that first game of the year versus the Chiefs where we had the issues with our left tackle Ronnie Stanley lining up in the wrong area. It's like these are issues that are starting to rear their ugly head 4 to 5 times a day at training camp. So I'm wondering, is this a pattern? Is this something obviously that could be an issue for the Ravens moving forward? Something clearly they need to get fixed as they put pads on moving here into this week.
Yeah, I think that's going to, there's nothing that hurts a coach more than stupid penalties, avoidable penalties. And I just, and it's all a mental thing at some point in time. It's not like, like you get a new quarterback, that's a different story. Or if you have a new center or something like that, okay, it's going to take you a game or two to get it worked out. But these guys have been here for 3 years together. There's no reason that, and the whole offensive line isn't changed up either. So there's no reason that this stuff is happening. It's just a matter of their mental game is not there, and they need to quickly get something worked out.
Well, a couple other quick stories from camp. Todd Monken spoke on Keaton Mitchell because apparently he's looked really good. We talked about him the last time we spoke. He just kind of company line, hey, he's got to fight for his touches. I mean, you have Derrick Henry there. Justice Hill performed admirably, was outstanding, last year. So he's got to fight for the reps to get on the field. I think that's kind of coach speak. I think they see that he has a special gift, and I think he will earn his way onto the field this year. I think it's going to be a moot point, but it's interesting to see that the Ravens aren't anointing him, the next guy. They're saying, hey, young buck, let's come on up and earn your stripes. Make sure you get back in the game.
Yeah, I think they're gonna, I think they're gonna end up finding a way to get the ball in his hands. Because when you got breakaway speed like that, it, you're not gonna not give that guy the ball. Like, his biggest flaw is gonna be his lack of experience. Is It's gonna also be, okay, what kind of pass protection can he help with? How good is he? Because Justice Hill is one of, if not the best running back in the league in the passing game, between his blocking, his route running. I mean, unless he lets the Steelers guy steal the ball from his hands, but as long as he's
Ouch.
yeah, that still burns. That hurts really bad still. That one. But he is, I don't know, would you agree with that, Mike? He's one of the best in the league as a third down, what I would call a third down back.
Yeah, I think that's why John Harbaugh believes in him so much. He's seen the improvement in the pass protection. When they have a blitzer coming at Lamar Jackson, they know that he's going to step up and try to knock him off his line and keep Lamar upright, which, I mean, think about how important that is to the Ravens. If Lamar goes down with an injury because we had the wrong running back in there and not missing his assignment on a protection on a blitz, that's a huge deal for the Ravens. But I think, like you said, John, that breakaway speed's going to show up. And I've seen, even in high school, just being around high school sports, like when you got a guy with the speed and the talent, like coaches are making up and dreaming up ways to find ways to get the ball in that guy's hand and get him on the field. The other interesting thing in camp was Zio kind of mentioned, and the Ravens have been known just to take their corners and play them on the boundaries on one side, on either side. He talked about the fact that Nate Wiggins might get matched up on maybe the number one wide receiver. He didn't say that's going to happen. He said it is a possibility that could happen. So what do you think from those comments from Zio? Do you think he's looking to put Wiggins on the primary option for your opponent, wide receiver wise, or do you think he's just saying, hey, it's a possibility, I don't want to give away my game plan?
I think he's going to. They said he put on another 15 pounds, I think. So I think he's at about a $190. He's another year in the league, another year looking at this. And I think with the way that Marlon is now, he is older, probably lost a step. His best spot is on the nickel, on the inside guy. And I really think Wiggins, just in the other reports and things that I've read about Wiggins coming out of camp, indicate he's ready for that number one corner role. And I think he's going to, I think they have faith and they have all the confidence in the world in him that he'll shut down that number one guy, because he's quick. I think he has another year under his belt of understanding how to play defensive back in the NFL, how the Ravens schemes are going to work, how these things work. And I just don't see any reason why you wouldn't put him in as the number one corner, and then move Marlowe to the slot and have, Alexander on the opposite side.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with you. Just to play devil's advocate a little bit, you're bringing in a Pro Bowl corner in Jair Alexander to play on the opposite side potentially. Yeah, Brandon Stevens last year playing opposite a lot of times of Nate Wiggins. He was a rookie. I guess it just speaks more to what Nate Wiggins is than to what they had last year. But I mean, I think I wouldn't mind Jair Alexander on a number one receiver because he's a ball hawk. He's a proven ball hawk. He'll make some plays on the ball. I guess my big question is, will Nate Wiggins learn to make some plays on the ball and have some interceptions this season? I know Alexander can do that. I think the younger player I like with the speed factor, right? Because corner is such a speed-based position, an agility, a quickness-based position. I like having that younger player with the burst and the quickness on the best receiver. But then again, you might get a mismatch here or there, and you might want to be able to switch things up and move things around. So just playing devil's advocate there. What are your thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I get it. And or if you just keep them both on the same side, whichever side they're more comfortable with. And I was just looking at something here. They're both, so Jair Alexander's about 3 inches shorter than Nate Wiggins. Nate Wiggins is 6'1", $183. Jair Alexander's 5'10", $195. So Wiggins is a little bit taller, but also a little bit leaner, but also a little bit faster. So I think that probably has something to do, with it too. And what this is going to come down to, though. This is going to come down to is, can we get to the quarterback? Can we put pressure on the quarterback with our front four? or are we going to have to be bringing Hamilton? Are we going to have to be bringing other things in? Because all of this is null and void if the quarterback standing up in the pocket and you're giving him 5 to 8 seconds to throw the football. It's all null and void. But I think that you have a proven Pro Bowler if he can stay healthy, and a future Pro Bowler on the other side as well. So there's not a lot to. These are the good problems to have,
Sure.
So,
and with Wiggins' length too, it's like most of the number one wide receivers you're going to think are bigger, taller, catch radius guys. So you're right, John. It makes sense to maybe move him there. Maybe you're playing a team that doesn't have that giant guy. You stick to sides. I think part of coaching is just being able to be adaptable to the situation. I don't think the Ravens are going to give away their game plan in any way, shape, or form either. That's not the John Harbaugh style. So I think it is a possibility you see him maneuver a little more than some of our other corners have in the past. But I don't necessarily think that that's a etched in stone kind of game plan there for the Ravens either.
Right. I think that they're very malleable. I think that they can adjust very well. And then also, when you have those two safeties back there who also, are both of them, but from what I see from Starks, is he's gonna be something special. I mean, Hamilton's already said Starks is way ahead of where he was when he came into the league. So, that's a thing where, okay, are they going to be playing all man to man, or are they going to be playing, Tampa too high with the zone defenses and things like that as well, where it doesn't really matter who you're matching up with as much. And, Zach Orr, I think, is going to have fun. I think he's going to have fun in setting up this defense with how he's with all of the weapons, and then the Mike, all of the stuff I read about Mike Green, and I think he's just having fun. Last year was stressful, but I think this year he's just going to be coaching and having fun.
Well, we didn't even really mention, Chidobe Awuzie and even Marlon Humphrey. What if you could send one of your outside corners on a blitz and slide one of those inside guys out if you need to? Marlon has covered for years in this league. He's probably lost a half a step, but we still have decent backups too. So love the depth. We'll see how it turns out as the season, goes by. Again, like I said in my preseason, health is the biggest concern. I'm scared about the health of the team. And every day the first thing I check at training camp is the injury report to make sure that everybody's ACLs are intact. But other than that, it's kind of interesting to hear who's standing out each day at camp, and we'll keep everybody up to date on kind of what's going on at camp. John, anything else for the good of the cause this evening? I think we've kind of hit on most of the local sports news with the Ravens and the Orioles. You have anything for us?
Nope, nothing else. Had the Hall of Fame today introduction, and Ichiro and CC Sabathia and Billy Wagner both all got in there. And Ichiro, if you have a chance, go watch Ichiro. He spoke in English, and it was kind of he has a sense of humor. So it was just a pretty cool thing. So, but nothing else, nothing major.
What a when he came over from Japan, what an amazing entrance, and just like the like you talk about batting stances when you were younger, right? Everyone did Griffey when I was a kid. Cal Ripken changed his stance a million times, and Ichiro came in with the sleeve and the the running start kind of out of the box, and just was fast with power, had all those tools, and like that was the thing that kids were emulating there for that period of time. Just kind of a generational talent, and kind of cool to see him get into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, 4,497 hits or something like that between the Japanese league and the major leagues. But the thing about Ichiro that always amazed me was how balanced he was swinging. If you watch him swing, how balanced he was never out of place. It looks like he's running to first, but if you look at when he makes contact in that left-handed, he was perfectly balanced, just like a good samurai sword. A good samurai sword is always perfectly balanced. And Ichiro was the samurai of the Japanese baseball league before he came over here.
All right, John, I think we might have to mute your mic soon. I'm not sure what's going on over there, but the old samurais. I am. He's the Scotty Scheffler of baseball. He likes to move his feet and swing at the same time. And I've tried to do that in golf, and guess what usually happens? The ball doesn't usually go very far. But Ichiro has perfected such a swing. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. I want to wrap things up here. Thanks for joining us for Dad Bod's Crab Cakes and Sports. We appreciate you hanging out with us this evening. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review, 5 stars if you could. It really helps us out. Like us, follow us. That's a big deal for us. It helps us keep on going. We're trying to spread the good news about Baltimore sports just far and wide as possible. Can you follow us, please, on social media for behind-the-scenes actions? You can go to @dadbods_crabcakes_sports. You can go to Instagram or find us at Dadbods Crab Cakes and Sports on our Facebook page. Email us at dadbodscrabcakesandsports@gmail.com. Just remember Dadbods Crab Cakes and Sports. If you remember those words, you'll find us wherever you look for the most part. We'll try to get your information out. You have an idea for us, we'll shout you out on our next episode. But until next time, keep rocking those dad bods, eating those crab cakes, and never miss a game.
Hasta la vista.